Hello, welcome to Sarmaya and to our latest show, Odyssey of the Rupee. I'm really delighted to walk you through this show. So come right in and join me in this walkthrough. Sarmaya was founded 10 years ago in 2015. And the whole idea behind Sarmaya was to bring forth stories about India's incredible wealth, heritage, history, culture. This particular show is curated by Shailendra Bhandari of Ashmolean Museum, which is part of Oxford. And we are delighted to have had his incredible depth of knowledge to help navigate this exhibition and structure it. So the way it's organized is that the 500-year history of the rupee is made into 7 clusters. Each cluster addresses a particular facet, timeline, or milestone of the rupee. And the place to start is essentially the first cluster, which talks us through the period before the rupee. So let's go to our first cluster, which is a section of ancient Indian coins. I'd like to talk a little bit about the fact that our numismatic heritage in India is almost 2,600 years old, and the rupee is 500 years of that. But 2,000 years prior to the rupee, we've had an incredible assortment of currencies, primarily in silver, gold, and copper. And across the country, there are a few historic and geographic concentrations, and I'll briefly talk about them. The earliest start is around 600 BC. We have many small kingdoms called janpads, and the coin you see there and in these initial lots are coins from that time. Janpads are principalities and kingdoms like Koshala, Kashi, Panchala, Gandhara, etc. And one of them, Magad, had imperial ambitions and decided to expand militarily. And so Magad becomes one of the most powerful kingdoms of ancient India, and a lot of coinage emanates from Magad. The other cluster in the northern part of the country, actually northwestern part of the country, is the Indo-Greeks post-Alexander. So many people who were left behind to govern the territory ended up becoming dynasts and issuing coins in their own right. Then once the Magadhan Empire of the Guptas, the Mauryas, etc. faded away, there were more communities in central India called the Satavahanas and the Western Kshatraps. And there was a period of time about 300 AD when these guys were, issuing coins, and mainly situated in central India. And then in southern India, there were many kingdoms that arose over a period of time. There were the Cholas, the Pandyas, there were the Chalukyas, the Hoysalas, and these are all kingdoms that had different eras associated and power that was, waxing and waning over the centuries, and they all issued coins. So you had a plethora of coinage, and they had all kinds of terms, denominations, etc. And then subsequently you had the Islamic invasions from the northwest of the country, which spread across the country. And you had Islamic coinage, and Islamic coinage was primarily calligraphic, and there was written material on the coin, but very little else visually. The older coins of India, like the Janpad coins, were recognized by the symbols and the combination of symbols on them. So one of the ones I'd really like to talk about is the coin from Y close by here. We are in Mumbai. This was in Maharashtra itself, found on a riverbed. And even today, the symbol of what resembles like pulley is an enigma. We really don't know what it represents, but we call it the Y pulley coin. We also have the bent bar, which was issued in Gandhara. The symbols on both ends. We have the imperial Magadhan coins with a plethora of symbols, some of which hark back to Buddhist times. We have the Pandya coin here. And then we have the Indo-Greek coin, which is very interesting because the refinement in coinage for the first time was displayed primarily in the Indo-Greek coins and followed very shortly thereafter by some spectacular coins issued by the Gupta dynasty. And you have an example of that here, which is, the king and the queen standing and facing each other on the face of the coin. You have gold coins from the Kushan period, and you had coins from Vijayanagara. So this section, as you can, sense, is 2000 years of history, but 2000 years of rather fragmented coin issuances in terms of denominations, in terms of style, in terms of metal, in terms of symbols and visuals associated with them. And I'm sure that moving around the geography, going to trade in one place or going to settle in another, or part of conquest, it would have been very difficult to navigate this landscape of such multiplicity. And that, to my mind, is the backdrop for someone to come and say, hey, we need something a little more standardized and a little more common across all these kingdoms and geographies. And when Sher Shah was pretty much ruler of all of North India, this must have been something that he thought about and decided to implement when he first chose to introduce the standard of the rupee. And so let's go to the section on the rupee. And very specifically, we are so delighted because we actually have the very first rupee that Sher Shah issued way back in 1538. So it's a special start to the exhibition. So now I'm going to talk to you about a specific coin that is of Sher Shah Suri, issued in Hijri year 945 and Gregorian year 1538. This special coin literally starts the journey of the rupee. It's minted in the Bihar Bengal style. It doesn't say the name of the mint, but from the style of the coin, we feel it has been minted in that part of the country. In any case, a lot of the silver entered India through that from China, through Bihar and Bengal. What is interesting is that it doesn't say rupee, but it is what was established as the standard. So, Sher Shah Suri basically said that the plethora of currencies that were around that time must be rationalized into a more regulated, a more standardized system. So he started essentially with two metals, which are silver and copper. And the silver had to be pure silver and roughly a tola, which is about 11.6 grams. So that's what constituted the standard for the rupee. A silver coin of 11.6 grams became the precursor to this whole journey which we see in this show. So this is a coin of Sher Shah Suri, minted in 1538, and which starts us on the journey of the rupee. So after this fixed weight silver coin that was issued, I want to kind of take you through the landscape that existed in this particular era, and that was the adoption of the rupee standard very soon thereafter by the Mughals. And because the Mughals were expanding in India, the rupee also started to expand. That is not to say that some of the currency that they were used to, because they came in from Central Asia, in Uzbekistan, Kabul, and all of these places, they bought in currency that they were familiar with, which was the Shahrukis primarily. But if you see the format of the coins, you'll realize that there is such likeness between the Shahruki and the rupee. So it's very difficult for the uninitiated to look at the coin and actually make out the difference. The real difference, of course, was in the weight standard. The Shahrukis were much lighter, thinner, broader flans. The rupee was heavier, 11.5 to 11.6 grams, and it was pure silver. And slowly and surely, the adoption of the rupee started to expand across the kingdom, across the empire. And you see here that the rupee was being issued, and of course, the older emperors, which is Babur, Humayun, even up to Akbar, there is still the Shahruki, which is prevalent in the geographies that they had moved into. So after Sher Shah's first rupee of 1538, Humayun returned from exile and the Mughals were back in the saddle. And what was fascinating was that they were quite acceptable of the rupee standard. They must have seen the benefits it provided for trade, for an easier understanding of the currency system in the empire. And the adoption was fairly rapid thereafter. Even though for a brief period when Babur, Humayun, Akbar were around, they were still using the coins that they were used to from where they came, and that was Central Asia and the Shahrukis. So you will see in this section the Shahrukis for that period sitting alongside the rupee, but the rupee is progressively increasing in popularity, in acceptance and usage. Okay, so in this panel, there are 2 or 3 interesting things. One is, of course, there is an example of the copper coins which Sher Shah issued alongside the silver rupiah. There is an example of the Shahrukis, which are, of course, what the Mughals were used to when they came into India. And then here sit 2 side by side, and they are Akbar's Shahruki and Akbar's rupee, and you will see how close they look. And as we traverse the timelines, you see rupees of Jahangir and Aurangzeb and all that. And when you come here, you see the coin of Aurangzeb issued from the mint of Jinji, which is down south in Tamil Nadu. So you're already, the empire is extending from what is Balkh, which is Afghanistan, all the way down to Tamil Nadu in India. So the rupee is now starting to cover the whole of the subcontinent. So what makes this rupee special is the fact that this is the very first time in the history of the rupee, which has started in 1538, that you find the word rupiah embossed on the coin. And this is a coin of Akbar, issued in his 47th regnal year. So for about, for 50 odd years, the rupee is understood as the rupee by the stringent weight standard and the metal standard, and this makes it more obvious that that weight and that metal is representing the rupiah. And this happens, like I said, in the 47th year of Akbar's reign. Very beautiful coin and a very rare coin to get. But it's very historic, and we are happy that it's here at Sarmaya. So, what is nice about this exhibition is that we are supplementing the really rare collection of coins across the eras with objects from the Sarmaya collection that depict or enhance the storytelling. We have maps, we have rare prints, we have 19th century photography, all of which have been put alongside the clusters relevant to them to kind of make the point a little better. So just to give you this, this is a map, of course, it's called the map of Hindustan, and it details the subas or the provinces as mentioned in the Ain-e-Akbari. So this was how the empire was organized, and this was also, interesting because in each of these subas, you actually have some of the more senior mints from where the coins were issued. And this, of course, is a Daniel take of Jinji, the place which I had talked about earlier where Aurangzeb had gone, and one of the southernmost mints, very close to Pondicherry, and it was the place to which the Marathas had retreated, and Aurangzeb's general had gone trying to capture him, and in Jinji they actually issued the coins that I was referencing. So now we go to the next section, which is actually our third cluster. And here we talk of the rupee in its multiplicity of avatars. Because in this section, we had essentially what was the Mughal rupee. And then here you see the rupee going from one version to many versions. So here what we are seeing is the proliferation of the rupee across the country and its kingdoms. And as the Mughal power is also waning a little bit, or the beginning of the downfall is starting, we also see the Sikhs, the Rajputs, the Jats, and many other Nawabs and Sultans issuing the rupee all the way from Assam to the south of the country in places like Mysore and Srirangapatna, to Rajasthan, to Kashmir. So it's widespread. And the only thing that distinguishes the rupee from each other, even though the weight standard and the metal standard stays consistent, is some of the symbols, some of the epithets, some of the writing on the coin. And I want to give you one particular example which is rather interesting. That is the coin of Ranjit Singh, the Sikh emperor. This is issued out of Amritsar, and the holy bear tree inside the golden temple, the leaf of the bear tree is symbolized on the coin and showing us the association with the Sikhs. And of course, there was a little bit of a controversy about this, because at some point they thought this was representing a feather of the peacock, and so they called it a Morshahi. And when someone pointed out to a courtesan called Moran, they said this is not appropriate. And this coin, this leaf was also replaced with a sprig of the bear tree with actual fruits, and then it became Bear Shahi. So all the controversies were put to rest. You'll also see coins here with regional languages. You'll see the odd coin here, shaped very differently from the typical circular and the somewhat rarer square versions. You have the octagonal version of Assam. You have a double rupee of Tipu Sultan, which is really beautiful, and it's named after the stars. Of course, there's an allusion to his father, Hyder, but this is called a Haidari. And you'll see coins of the various Mughal emperors, all issued as rupees. So the silver standard, the rupee standard, is now proliferated across what we call, what is the present day India, even though at that stage there was a multiplicity of kingdoms and, different rulers. But they all accepted the rupee as the standard. So there are some other very interesting coins in this panel, and This particular one is a coin issued by Nadir Shah, the Persian emperor, who defeated the Mughal emperor in 1739 in Delhi, and issued coins from the fort of Delhi, which was then called Shahjahanabad. And apparently he was praying at this mosque, which is the Suneri Masjid, and heard that some of his soldiers were attacked and killed, and he, in a rage, actually led a huge massacre in the city of Delhi, and put the fear of God into so many kingdoms that across the country, in Bengal, in Ahmedabad, people started to issue coins, rupee coins, in the name of Nadir Shah. But then, also history turns the table sometimes. So if you see this coin, it's very interesting because this is the coin of the Marathas, issued by them out of Lahore. So they had a deal at one point in time to be the protectors of the Mughals for a hefty fee. And they went and they took over when they were chasing the Afghans in one of their earlier forays into India, Ahmad Shah Abdali, and they took over Lahore. And this coin was issued by the Marathas out of Lahore. So Maratha Empire extends at that point literally from Lahore all the way down to Tanjore in a loose federative structure. But coins, are for the kings, for the Marathas, for Nadir Shah, who's a conqueror. And of course, here it's interesting because this is a Mughal pretender, Kam Baksh. So when Aurangzeb dies, one of his sons, who is in the Deccan, decides to, strike coins and establish himself as the emperor. But of course, he gets defeated by his own brother, and he has a rather short-lived reign. But you have coins issued by him from mints in the Deccan. So we have seen coins before the rupee. We've seen the rupee getting issued and proliferating in the Mughal Empire. We see it also proliferating in other kingdoms that are present in the country. And now we come to this rather important section, because this is a section that pertains to the various colonial powers that come to India, And over the years, they also start to adopt the rupee as the standard. So you have the Portuguese, you have the French, you have the Dutch, you have the English, and you also briefly, by the way, had the Danish, but I don't think they issued the rupee, not that I have seen, but they issued other coinage. But what's fascinating is that all of them wanted to issue the rupee because it was easier to use the rupee to trade, but they needed permissions. So they took permissions from the Mughal emperors initially, or some of the leading kingdoms of the day in which they were operating. But slowly, the colonial enterprise started to expand in India, especially the British. And the British operated out of three main locations. The west, which are Surat and Mumbai, and later into Mumbai, then Madras and Calcutta and Murshidabad. So it was the Bombay Presidency, the Madras Presidency, and the Bengal Presidency. And as the presidencies expanded, the British East India Company, which was actually a private enterprise, was issuing a multiplicity of coins, and somebody decided back in the UK that it was time to assert their own, rights as an occupier not only of large tracts of land and the beginnings of a military power, but also someone who had influence over vast swathes of India, And so the colonial rupee, which was an imitation of many of the other rupees that were in circulation, someone decided, and there was an act issued in Parliament in 1835 to have a uniform, coinage act, and that was in 1835. And subsequent to that, in India, you find the issuance of a very standardized machine-struck rupee, which is showcasing the head of the British monarch, and it says 1 rupee and it says East India Company, and this coin is then in use in all the 3 presidencies. And the very first journey to unification of the rupee in the way it looked and in the way it visually looked started. So 1835, the rupee issued by the East India Company pursuant to the Uniform Coinages Act becomes the standard across a large part of the country called the presidencies. So now we are entering a rather delicate phase of our numismatic history, because this is the period when the Mughal power is waning and the British power is firmly establishing itself. The Mutiny of 1857 essentially transfers the power from the East India Company to the Crown. The British Crown takes over the running of the country, and of course establishes itself solidly on the ground, and all the princely states recognize that overarching power of the British Crown. And you see these coins immediately shifting, from coins issued in the name of Mughal emperors to coins issued in the name of the British sovereigns. So you have wonderful examples. So here's a particular one, which is the silver rupee of Jaswant Singh of Bharatpur. At that time, he was so keen to put an imagery of Queen Victoria, but having, no access to a proper approved image, he actually takes it off the postage stamp, and it's the commentary is Almighty Queen on the throne of England and India, and it is issued in 1858, so we know it's immediately after the mutiny. We have another very interesting story of the Maharaja of Rewa, who is keen to again issue a coin with the imagery of the British Empire, but the resident who was there in his court, Mr. Bushby, he actually asked him, how long will it take? And Bushby says it might take about 4 months to get permission and approvals. So in his keenness to establish his allegiance to the British sovereign, he actually issued coins in the name of the resident, Bushby, and you have coins, rare though, in the name of Bushby. Here you have Nazrana coins, and this was issued to kind of balance what you did within your own kingdom and when you had connections with the sovereign. So this was issued by Jaipur, Madhav Singh, and it's issued in the name of Queen Victoria. And this is also the time that the British power started to kind of want uniformity and wanted, some kind of acceptance of the British standard of the rupee. And they said that, we'd like, you guys also to stop issuing hand-struck rupees. Why don't you do something big? Or they threatened to kind of shut down their authority to issue coins. So very quickly, Nawab of the Nizam of Hyderabad actually accepts that and buys equipment from the Presidency of Madras, brings it to Hyderabad, and for the very first time actually has machine-struck coins. And this creates the transition into the machine-struck era. The first lot were in that period when the presidency started to standardize. Then our princely states also started to standardize. And there are many stories here. There are stories of mercenaries who issued coins in their own right. You have coins here of a Frenchman called Jean-Baptiste Philos. You have a coin of a British person called Frederick Wilson, who issued their own rupee. You have the story of Begum Samru, who was the wife of one of the mercenaries in India, and she had a jagir which the husband had got, and became the ruler of that jagir in a place called Sardana near Meerut, north of Delhi, and issued coins in her own name from her jagir in Sardana. So you have many versions, but the versions are establishing the transition from what was essentially a Mughal-dominated India to now a British-dominated India. So, all these coins, we found it quite fascinating to see, who are the people behind, and we actually went into our archive of 19th century photography and pulled out many of the issuers of these coins, their actual photographs. So you have, over here, the Nizam, who essentially issued that first machine-struck coin. And you have many more royalty, and this is the Maharaja of Kashmir, this is Jaswant Singh, Maharaja of Jodhpur, and this is the Maharaja of Bharatpur, the man who issued this coin. And on the other end you have the Maharaja of Udaipur, Maharaja of Jaipur, and the famous Wajid Ali Shah, the Nawab of Awadh. So, incredible array of people in literally the flesh. First time you see them in photographs. And of course, again, as I mentioned earlier, some of the symbols, which are important. Jaipur had a branch, the Lucknow had fish, Baroda had a sword, because they were titled Shamsher Bahadur, so Shamsher is a sword. So everyone adopted a standard symbol. So very interesting section, and multitude of coin designs, but again, fundamentally, all the silver rupee. So, in the earlier sections, we saw the uniformity being driven by the British in their presidencies, and that was the East India Company in 1835 when it put the image of the monarch. You then have the 1857 mutiny. There is a complete domination of the British, and it is, with their authority, many things that happened, which we saw in the section of the princely states. And now we come to an era where the British are totally dominant. They are the rulers in the country. They are a predominant, geographic colonial power. They cover almost all of India in terms of either direct administration or very deeply influenced administration of some of the princely kingdoms through the method of, implants of residencies, as they call it. So here you see essentially post the mutiny, Queen Victoria's coins started to get issued, and in 1862 the issuance of Queen Victoria's coins started, and then the date stayed fixed, and every year the coins were distinguished by additional dots put on the coin. You also have the period where after or around the First World War, they are struggling for coinage, because they don't have metal. And very first time, they issue the rupee in a note form. And that happens in 1917, and this is the rupee from that. Notes existed before this one, but not the rupee. All higher denominations. So Bank of Hindustan started, and then the three presidency banks of Bank of Bengal, Bank of Madras, and Bank of Bombay. And these three merged together to form the Imperial Bank, which was the predecessor of today's State Bank of India. But this 1 rupee was not issued in any other form other than coin. But in 1917, because there was a shortage of metal, they had the first paper issuance of the rupee. And as you can see, it was the rupee, the imagery was the British monarch, there was a head, and there was a denomination stated on the coin, of course. And then, of course, independence happened in 1947. And for 3 years, we continued using the coinage of the British era. And it took 3 years for us to actually mint a coin which was exclusively independent India's coin, and we issued that in August of 1950, 3 years after independence. And we have that coin here, and it's this particular coin. So very special in terms of its connotations, because this had a sheaf of corn, essentially to hopefully hark back to the our agriculture and the relationship of agriculture to our prosperity. And on the other side, we had the Ashok Stham, which is a symbol of Indian sovereignty. So this was issued in 1950, August of 1950, and thereafter the Republic of India lived with its own rupee, versions of the rupee. So many of our rupees issued after 1950, whether in coin form or in paper form, carried a lot of symbol, of either historic India or aspirational India. So, we had some of our leaders like Gandhi and all, showcased on the rupee. We had our achievements in infrastructure building of dams, etc., showcased on the rupee. And we had some of our historic monuments like the Brihadeshwara temple showcased on the rupee. So the rupee became for us a medium of not only currency and exchange, but visualization of sovereign power and the heritage and history of our country. Okay, and then, we come to what is our last section, and it's the most incredible, section as far as I'm concerned, because it talks of the global rupee and the way the rupee traveled, thousands of kilometers and became the currency of choice in many, many countries and across many continents. So, there has to be something to the power and influence of the rupee, the trust and belief in the rupee. And it's amazing to see that, it started with some of the colonial powers taking the actual rupee from India, the physical rupee, taking it to distant lands, countermarking it with, some symbol or sign for use in those areas. So this, for example, is a Dutch rupee. It's actually a rupee of Muhammad Shah issued in Lahore, and the Dutch take it all the way to Java and countermarket Java in a Malay version of Farsi and use it as the currency of choice in transacting in a land as far away as Indonesia. Then you have an array of coins here, and if you see that obviously there was a history to the trade with Africa. Long before the colonials. We were trading with Africa. But when the colonials came, initially it was all about taking stuff back to their countries. That changed when they realized that there was a lot of intra-regional trade that was possible and a lot of money to be made by taking stuff from India to Africa, the Middle East to the Far East, etc. So, the British were, of course, again, the predominant power even on the East African coast. But many other colonies were there who had nothing to do with India, like the Italians or the Germans. So you have a scenario in the entire belt of East Africa, starting from the north, going all the way down to Mozambique. So Somalia, and this is a coin which was issued for use in Italian Somaliland, and the coin is actually minted in Rome, and the coin is a rupee, So it's a rupee coin minted in Rome for use in Somalia by the Italians. Similarly, if you have coins here issued by the Germans out of Berlin, the rupee for use in German East Africa. You have the Portuguese who have taken rupees, issued it for use in Mozambique. So you have the British, you have the Portuguese, you have the Italians, you have the Germans. Everybody is transacting in the rupee. And even in the Middle East, there were principalities which were in what is present-day Saudi Arabia and Yemen, who were familiar and believed that the rupee, and of course there was another currency called the thaler, but the rupee was taken and stamped. And so you have a coin here from the Principality of Najd, which is in present-day Saudi Arabia, and the rupee was the currency that was in use there. And then the British printed currency notes out of India, and the Reserve Bank printed the currency notes out of India for use in the Middle East, partly also to curb gold smuggling. And that was the currency that was predominant and the currency of choice in the Persian Gulf region all the way up to the 70s. Early 70s is when some of them moved to other domestic currency systems. So you have currencies here from across the world that were the rupees, denominated in the rupees. So you have a Chinese rupee, which is issued in Szechuan, meant for trading with India and Tibet. You have the Tibetan version, you have the Burmese version, you have the version in the Indian Ocean, which is Mauritius, Seychelles, Maldives. And what we realize is that over this period of time, many of them just continued to use the rupee even to date. While some of them moved into other currencies, maybe part as a fallout of independence movements where they're asserting themselves. But if you see here, you've got literally rupees in vogue all the way from Western Papua, going across to Africa, the east of Africa. And you have another aspect. All of this is trade related. Then there is the conquest related expansion of the rupee. When Nadir Shah comes to India and defeats Muhammad Shah Rangila in 1739, he takes back so much loot that he finds it easier to just use those rupees as a currency in the Persian Empire rather than take that, melt it and reissue. It was so much that he issued them. And then the Persian Empire was also expanding further north. And we have a situation where the rupee was being issued out of distant mints as far away as Tbilisi in Georgia. You have a sample of that in the wall there, the coin from Tbilisi in Georgia, and many mints across the Persian Empire, the Afghan Empire. And today, you have a scenario where you can say that literally the known world of that time, barring Latin America, every continent had the rupee. So you had a rupee in what is present-day Russia and Georgia. You have a rupee in what is present-day the African countries of Somalia, Kenya, Tanzania, Portugal, Mozambique, etc. You have in Indonesia. You have in countries like Ceylon. You have also in small nondescript islands like the Cocos and Keeling, which is a particularly special example. It was a small atoll of islands in the middle of the ocean between India and Australia. And there were 600 people on that island, but there was a guy, a Scotsman called Clunies Ross, who set up a quasi-kingdom, and he also issued the rupees. So the rupee was literally everywhere. But that just illustrates the point even more that this was a currency that was popular for a variety of reasons, for its history, the ease of understanding, for its trustworthiness, and for the fact that India accounted for so much of the intra-regional and global trade of that era. So the Cocos and Keeling story which I'm talking about, if you come to this station, this is essentially an actual Google map, and you will see representation of all the geographies across the world that we're using. And of course, we are right now at the Cocos and Keeling Island, and you can see the Cocos and Keeling Island where it is. It's in the sea, and it's literally like midway between India and Australia in the Indian Ocean. And this is the image of the rupee issued out of the Cocos and Keeling Islands. So this is a lovely station because you can actually, literally look at coins from across the globe, the rupee, and you have 28 locations across the globe that use the rupee, and that is evident here. So from this digital view of the whole world where the rupee was functioning, we now come to literally the timeline, So right from when we start the rupee in 1538, all the way through to today in 2025, we have all the leading milestones associated with the evolution of the rupee. And so it's interesting to know that in 1650, the earliest colonial version of the rupee, which was struck in Goa, then the East India Company gets permissions to issue coins out of Mumbai, and the mint in Mumbai is literally close to where we are in the fort area. Then you see a visual sample you saw there. This is when the Dutch East India Company starts to use countermark, Surat rupees for places like Colombo and Ceylon and further towards the East Indies. Then, of course, 1739, when Nadir Shah comes, he's actually taken the rupee all the way back to Iran and the Persian Empire, and you have the rupee in 1740 being issued out of Tbilisi in Georgia. And at this point is around the time when Aurangzeb has also, gone all the way down to, Trichy, which is the southernmost mint of the rupee. And so on as we go and traverse. We saw this in cluster 4, where we saw the East India Company issuing for the first time a uniform rupee across the presidencies. You see the colonial governments in Africa issuing coins. You see the Mombasa rupee, the Italian rupee, the German rupee. And these are all minted. Literally, this is minted in the UK, this is minted in Rome, this is minted in Berlin. And then you keep traveling and you see, the first rupee, which we saw an example of. And then the Reserve Bank is established in 1935. Then, of course, the first rupee of independent India, rupees that are issued for specific use when people went on the Hajj. The first time the rupee is decimalized in and becomes 100 paisa to a rupee. Before that, it was annas to a rupee. And then, of course, in more modern times, and there are some fascinating things that happens, which is between the period 85 to 2000, when the capacities, the demand for the rupee increases so rapidly as the economies are growing in India. You have a situation where we run out of physical capacity to mint rupees, so we outsource the minting of the rupees and outsource it to countries all over the world. And Mexico City issues rupees for us, Moscow issues rupees for us, Pretoria issues rupees for us, Seoul issues rupees for us, Slovakia issues rupees for us, and of course the UK issues rupees for us. So this is modern day, the rupee being issued for us, and of course that finished in 2000 and we created our own capacities. The rupee gets a new symbol in 2010, and today we stand at that cusp where the future of the rupee as a currency is again reviving in its digital format and avatar. But we also wonder 10 years from now if we will have a physical version of the rupee, whether in coin or currency form, because everyone now has the rupee in their pocket or on their phone in a very digital format. So where are we headed with the rupee? I think the rupee as a currency will be there. The mechanisms that facilitate digital usage of the rupee will proliferate, and maybe in a few years from now, again, all the rupees that we have today become collectibles once again.